got the doctor in front of your name.
I think that's so powerful, because you just simply saying, the things that we've experienced in life, the things that we experience in the community and society isn't necessarily a product of us, our like flaws that we might have, or us lacking certain skill sets. But it's a matter of the system. I think that we would think about ourselves differently and give ourselves more grace if we saw it as a systemic issue as opposed to a me issue.
Yeah. You hear a lot of times about the pay equity and wage gap. So, for example, Black women's pay equity is September, and it keeps moving forward further and further into the year. But it's September 21st, I believe, is the date. But it is in September. So that means that it takes us an additional 9 months into the following year to earn what a white male earned the previous year. So it takes us a year and 9 months to earn the same thing, because we're making like 50 something cents, 58 cents to $1 that a white male earns. And a lot of the articles that came out around Black Women's Pay Equity Day were Black women need to advocate better for themselves. Black women need to learn to negotiate. And my thought process is, well, we wouldn't have to negotiate if we were just getting paid properly. So right. I think there is a lot of that time we see that in the Black community, and we don't really question that. Why is there always victim blaming? If someone does something, in the case of police brutality, racial profiling, we saw it with George Floyd. We're seeing it now with Tyree Nichols, where it's like, oh, wait, maybe this happened. Maybe he did. What was happening? And it's like, it doesn't really matter. No one deserves that. So I think as Black folk, we know these patterns are happening, but there tends to be, I think, a little bit for us. It's hard for us to even articulate, because articulating it means we have to face the fact that we're living in a society that's inherently unfair. Civil rights movement put legislation in place, but people are still circumventing that legislation by saying they don't see what's happening and they don't understand it. They don't know it. And we're like, well, there's 50 billion studies that have been done. You want me to now come in and explain to you how you're hurting me, why you're hurting me. And then when I tell you it, you're telling me that's not happening. And let's figure out some things, figure out why. And it started to, I feel like for me, it started to get frustrating that the blame is being pointed back on Black women for example, not running households or being the head of households, when we know that Black men have always been targeted and a part of the school to prison pipeline and are literally being taken out of the household. Welfare policy, even back in the 50s and 60s, said you can't have a man living in the household if you want to get benefits. And I know people that said, oh, I saw my mom doing that, So when you talk about, well, Black men, stay with your woman, and Black women stop having kids out of wedlock, people want to have kids. And people, even now, the birth rates are going down because people know they can't afford them, or people know that marriage is not necessarily the outcome that they want for themselves, but they do want to have children. But we were specifically targeted to say, well, if you're trying to get welfare, where's your husband? And if he's in the household and he's not working, then you can't get welfare. And those were things that were specifically targeted toward the Black community. And then you turn around and take that stereotype and weaponize it and say, well, Black women are aggressive. Black women are loud. Black women are this, Black women are that. And I think a lot of those stereotypes, it does make us see ourselves differently. It does make us go into spaces and feel we have to work twice as hard, or feel our voices are not valid, feel like we're being looked at under a microscope. All those things that are happening and making us feel less than, it's not something that is an internal thing, which is why I said, let me break down imposter syndrome. I was talking to a Black male colleague who's very well respected, and he's done a lot of things in IT and as a founder. And I was telling him, I feel like maybe I have imposter syndrome. And he was like, wait, imposter syndrome? What are you talking about? You're not an imposter. He's like, why are you saying that you have imposter syndrome? And I said, I don't know. I just feel kind of nervous when I'm going to these situations. I feel kind of scared. And this was in 2020. So this was after I had even been very vocal and outspoken and doing all this stuff and doing all this national publicity, been interviewed by New York Magazine, Forbes. And he's like, that doesn't make sense. I don't think you should say that about yourself. And I started to say, I don't know why I'm even saying that. So I started to research imposter syndrome and found that even all the studies were saying that most of the people that had imposter syndrome were women or people from historically excluded, marginalized backgrounds. And it started to feel as though we really didn't have imposter syndrome. We were going into spaces and we were being treated like imposters. And that made us second guess ourselves. So I started saying, well, it's not imposter syndrome, it's imposter treatment. A syndrome is something that's coming from inside you. It's
The doctor in front of your name.